All right. Um, Hi, everybody. We're doing things a little bit different tonight, kind of flying by the seat of our pants, so just bear with us. Um, I am not going to pray, but if someone would like to start us off in prayer, I'm good. There you go. Victoria's going to pray first.
Um, Dear God, thank you for being with us tonight as we delve into one of the human tragedies of trauma. We all suffer from it at some point in our lives, and we know that your grace is part of what helps us get through it. Um, be with us as we discuss it and discuss ways to work through it. And thank you for your love and presence and being here with us and bringing these wonderful people here who just are in the right place. Thank you so much. In your name. Amen.
All right. That's not my forte. So just want to preface with, that trauma is a difficult topic. Uh, okay, just want to preface with trauma is a difficult topic. It might be hard for some people, so don't worry about it. Don't feel subconscious about it. If you need to leave the room and come back, or if you just need to leave or can't participate, I mean, that's understandable. Um, so can we hit the... Okay. Wow, I'm not going to be able to see all of that. Sorry about that. Okay, so what do we want to do first is just take a minute. I've given everybody sheets of paper and pens. Just take a minute and write down the different types of trauma that you can think of or experienced or just whatever. And then I'm going to ask you afterwards to offer some of those traumas to the group. So, Janine, are you through? What do you got? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Anybody else got anything there ready? Yeah, lots of different kinds of abuse. Some that we have listed, which is certainly by no means all of them, but school violence, community violence, terrorism, war, bullying, natural disasters, the death of someone you love, domestic abuse, traumatic medical experiences, accidents, crime, and a myriad of other things, right? And for a lot of us in this room, um, you know, part of our trauma is religious trauma. That's mainly the reason why we're all here is religious trauma, right? Um, so, negative childhood experiences um, can set a lot of things in motion. It very often, many times, starts in childhood. It doesn't have to, but a lot of trauma starts in childhood. I know for me, that's where mine started, and it's just been added to as I've gotten older. Just people keep adding more to it. But abuse, neglect, sexual assault, things like that. Dysfunctional household, you got loved ones or parents that are incarcerated or can't keep a job or, abuse alcohol or drugs, the violence in the home, all of those kinds of things. um, can create, well, do create, shouldn't say can, do create trauma. And for me, I'm in my very early 60s. Just want to point out very early 60s. But for me, it has been a lifetime of working on and overcoming trauma, a lot of which started when I was in my early ones. So, yeah, single digits. So, I mean, it's a lot of work. And unfortunately, a lot of things happen when we don't, even though these things are not caused by us, they're not our fault, but we're left to figure out how we're going to function in the world for the rest of our lives, right? So, and a lot of what happens when we don't address that is risky behavior. It could be alcoholism, drug abuse, you know, can't hold a job, or turn into food for comfort. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. There's like on this list, I can name several of those things that have happened as a result for me, especially the COPD, the smoking, the drug abuse, the heart disease. I don't know what's happening. But all of those things are a direct result of trauma. So, people that grew up in uncertain circumstances very often have display very risky behavior. I know I did, and still do to some degree. So still working on that. So we just think about, if there's any other kind of risky behavior that you may have been involved in or that you have witnessed in your family that maybe is not up here, and what maybe those consequences have been. And that's what I have for now. My partner in crime is going to join us.
Tag team, and I'm in. All right, so go to the next slide. So then we're going to talk about the common ways that we self-protect. And depending on who you are in your situation, you'll react to something in one of these ways, perhaps multiple ways. So there's first one is denial. So this is where the person denies the reality of their own actions towards somebody else. And they'll say things like, that never happened. Why would you say something like that? So it's that kind of defense denial. Some people minimize the situation. So this person has a tendency to just make light of the significant painful events. They're like, I don't think I belong here. Everyone else's stories are so much worse than mine. And we do this with even coming to faith stories. Because like if we've been traumatized by the church, we're like, well, I've never had anything. Nah, you've had something. So yeah, so there a lot of people minimize to kind of downplay their trauma. We can have spiritualization. So this is when a person tends to offer pious advice or even scripture to make themselves feel more comfortable. So they'll put on scripture and they're like, well, God works all things together for the good of those who love him. Well, that is true. If you're using that to mask your trauma, that's a way of self-protection. Another one is rationalization. The person has tendency to substitute good reasons for the real reasons. So you can rationalize things like he didn't mean what he was saying. He just had a bad day. And that you see often in abusive relationships. I know I've fallen into that rationalization piece myself. Anger. So anger is like a secondary emotion, and it's not about the anger. It's about masking fear, hurt, or sadness. So if you're trying to protect yourself, you're like, no way, I'm going to confront my mother. That's just ridiculous, So you get angry at the situation, but it's masking something else. So, and there's a few more ways on the next one. Other behaviors. So we've got passive aggressive behavior. So you deny your anger as unspiritual or unkind, but then it's repressed and expressed in this passive way. And it's often body language or behavior. So behaviors could be being chronically late, being unresponsive, like pushing back the chair from the group, making other disruptions in the group, and just how you sit and act. So that can show trauma. Interrogation. So if you're in doing this interrogation, you ask probing questions that keep somebody else on the defensive. And interrogation also manifests as a focus on insignificant details of a story. That was interesting to me because I just had an example of that come up in my life. So questions that might be asked, like, why do you put up with your brother being so abusive? So that's the interrogating questions on somebody else. It's also like projecting. So where does your brother live? Why don't you just tell him to stop calling you? So getting angry to put off your own trauma. So there's also withdrawal. So people sometimes just withdraw. They get silent. They remove themselves physically. They separate themselves from the pain. They just get overwhelmed and they just withdraw and feel like they're frozen or slipping away. And then there's cynicism. So cynicism is harsh, but it's also a form of aggression. But it's more for them. So it's kind of being totally cynical about the situation. I believe what we have next is a video that we're going to do. Yeah, that's a link to a video. So we're going to watch that, and then we have a little bit more, and then we'll get to the rest. We're going to have to go back to that. All right. So there is a video. I mean, I don't. Did you watch the video with Leslie, or no? I don't know. Well, the video is what is trauma. So we'll hopefully be able to get a link to that going forward. Sorry, again we're punching. So here, this is a poster about resilience. So everyone has some kind of trauma, but it's coming through it is part of it just being resilient. So this can show up in a lot of different ways. So I mean, you can see all the different graphics, but from the top, it's like having self-esteem, learning from your mistakes, understanding and accepting your own strengths and weaknesses, having self-control, using coping strategies. You could go emotional. Willingness to overcome the difficulties rather than avoiding your problems. I see this one come up more often than I care to note. Optimistic thinking patterns, because if you're keeping yourself pessimistic, you're not going to want to work through things. Um, Formatting social skills and seeking assistance from others. That's that community piece. Developing problem-solving skills, connecting to your school or community, ability to recognize your own emotions and others' emotions, and setting goals. So those are all ways to be resilient. All of those take a lot of work, you know. So you have to be willing to work through your trauma. All right, next one. So these are the 4 domains of resilience. So it happens in a lot of different ways. So you have physical resilience, literal physical flexibility. So you get stronger, you have endurance. It's just, I mean, you can look at that in a workout sense, but you can also look at if there's some physical abuse of some kind. You simply have to be physically resilient in a way. Emotional resilience, that's having emotional flexibility, keeping that positive outlook and regulating yourself. Because really all you have is control over yourself ultimately. Spiritual resilience, so that includes spiritual flexibility, commitment to a set of values that works for you, tolerance of other people and what they're going through. Mental resilience, that's having mental flexibility, maintaining an attention span, and being able to focus. So a lot of different ways that you can do resilience. And then these are the 6 roots of it. And so the 6 roots of resilience. far. So that's a lot of ideas for resilience. It's not easy. I don't know. We have an activity toward the end. This is just an overview. It's such a huge topic. And there we go. Keep going next part.
A couple of things I want to touch on. I don't want to, I know we're talking about this in a very, very general way, and that, we're talking about some ways that we can, protect ourselves and work through some things. And it all sounds very simple and easy, and it's just not. So trauma can also manifest itself into other kinds of self-harm. And that self-harm can be cutting, or I watched a particular documentary about uh, about religious trauma, and there was a young lady in there that was taking a coin, a quarter, and heating it up, and then burning herself. And so I just got asked before I came here how pain makes somebody feel better about their trauma. And I thought about that documentary, and what happened was the young lady explained that when she hurt herself, then she had something tangible, because the emotional, spiritual, mental pain, um, you can't touch it. There's no way to get relief. And so what she would do is create those burns, so that then afterwards she could take care for herself, and like put on ointment and change bandages and do these kinds of things. And it was something tangible for her to release that, and be able to address something that's real, that you can see and take care of. And so, we've got a lot of people walking around very traumatized, uh, have no idea what their triggers are. You don't know what mine are, but some of you have found out some of them by accident. So, I mean, understanding what your triggers are, and understanding how that manifests in other people, because it can happen in so many different ways, and none of them are good. So I don't want to minimize this topic in any way. And I do know that probably around September, we will revisit more specific trauma, but we wanted to talk in general about this topic because it is so important, and so many of us. I personally, I don't know you well enough, but I'm pretty sure everybody else in this room is traumatized. So, yes. But there's a sheet, and we meant to have a handout for it, but we have paper. I gave you 2 sheets so that you could do this, and it's just, um, you know, thinking about over the course of your life, huge events, because we have huge events in our lives. Some of them are awesome, and some of them are awful. So think about over the course of your life span up to now, um, just a line, and like, how your life has, what that roller coaster looks like for you. I don't want to do mine because it looks like this, and then recently it's going up a little bit. So, but again, it's hard work. Don't want to minimize anything. So understand that. I've personally been through heroin addiction. I've personally been incarcerated in the Texas Department of Corrections twice. I personally smoked for over 30 years and have COPD as a result, and heart disease. A lot of that's hereditary, but still, there's so many things that come with trauma because we don't take care of ourselves because others didn't care for us. So I don't want to end on a, sucky note, but I just want to make sure that we all understand the gravity of this topic.